Tonight, let's journey to the wild moors of Yorkshire, where wind howls across purple heather and love becomes something fierce, something eternal. No need to focus too hard or remember every detail. Let the story carry you like wind across the heath, gentle and constant. This is Wuthering Heights, a tale of love so consuming it burns through death itself, so powerful it haunts generations yet to come. What happens when two souls are truly made of the same fire? When love refuses boundaries of class, propriety, even the boundary of death. Emily Brontë wrote this novel in a stone parsonage on the Yorkshire moors, three sisters creating worlds, while wind rattled their windows. Picture the year 1801. A gentleman named Lockwood has rented a country house and ventures out to meet his mysterious landlord nearby. The house is called Wuthering Heights. The name itself describes the wild winds that batter its walls, stunted trees bent by constant gales. Inside, Lockwood finds a hostile household. Dogs snarl at his ankles, and the master, Heathcliff, barely acknowledges his existence with cold, dark eyes. A snowstorm traps Lockwood at the Heights for the night. He's given a strange room, warned not to mention it to the master. In the room, Lockwood discovers old books with names scratched everywhere in the margins. Catherine Earnshaw, Catherine Heathcliff, Catherine Linton. Who was she? One book contains a diary. Young Catherine complaining about sermons, about her awful brother Hindley, about running on the moors with someone named Heathcliff. Lockwood falls into uneasy sleep. Then the nightmare comes. A child's hand breaks through the glass, cold fingers gripping his wrist, desperate voice crying. Let me in, the ghost child wails. I've been lost on the moors for 20 years. Lockwood cries out in pure terror. Heathcliff bursts into the room, and something extraordinary happens. His fierce composure shatters. He throws open the window, calling into the storm. Lockwood flees at dawn to Thrushcross Grange, his rented manor in the valley below. There, the housekeeper Nellie Dean knows all the old secrets. Tell me about Heathcliff. Lockwood asks Nellie by the fire. Tell me who Catherine was. Tell me everything about Wuthering Heights and its ghosts. Nellie settles into her chair. Her story begins 30 years past, when old Mr. Earnshaw still ruled Wuthering Heights, and his children were young. Mr. Earnshaw made a long journey to Liverpool, 60 miles on foot. He promised his children gifts. Hindley wanted a fiddle. Catherine wanted a whip. But Earnshaw returned with something unexpected. Wrapped in his coat was a dirty, starving, dark-haired child. He'd found homeless on the Liverpool streets. The family recoiled. Hindley kicked the strange child. Catherine spat at him. Mrs. Earnshaw demanded the creature be thrown out. But the father refused. They named him Heathcliff, after a son who had died in infancy. One name serving as both first and last, marking him forever as outsider. But young Catherine's hostility melted quickly. Something in those dark, defiant eyes called to something wild in her. She crept closer, curious now. Within weeks they were inseparable. Catherine shared her bed with the foundling, defended him against Hindley's fists, taught him to run wild across the moors. Hindley's jealousy festered like a wound. His father clearly loved this stranger more than his own son. The unfairness ate at him daily. But Catherine and Heathcliff cared nothing for Hindley's rage. They had the moors, they had each other. For now, that was enough. Every day, Catherine and Heathcliff escaped to the moors together. They climbed Penistone crags, hid in rocky crevices, built kingdoms in their imagination. Something deeper than friendship grew between them. They spoke a language no one else understood, finished each other's thoughts, shared a single wild soul. Old Mr. Earnshaw's health began failing. Hindley's cruelty toward Heathcliff grew so vicious that Earnshaw sent his own son away to college in desperation. 3 blessed years followed. With Hindley gone, Catherine and Heathcliff ruled the Heights together, running wild, answering to no one but each other. Then old Earnshaw died quietly one autumn evening by the fire. Heathcliff lost his only protector. Catherine lost her father. Everything was about to change. Hindley returned for the funeral with a wife no one knew he had. Frances was pretty but fragile, and Hindley was now master of Heights. Hindley's revenge was swift. Heathcliff was stripped of education and status, thrown out of the family rooms, forced to sleep with the horses and labor in fields. But Heathcliff endured. He bore every degradation, every blow, every humiliation. His eyes burned with something that scared even Hindley when he looked too closely. Catherine found herself caught between worlds. Nellie dressed her in fine clothes now, taught her manners. But her heart still raced only for the moors. One night Catherine and Heathcliff ran away together to spy on Thrushcross Grange. They crept through the garden, peering through the bright windows at the Linton children. The Linton dogs caught them. One seized Catherine's ankle, tearing flesh. Heathcliff was cursed as a foul-mouthed thief and driven away into the darkness alone. Catherine stayed at the Grange for 5 weeks to heal. 5 weeks surrounded by soft carpets, kind voices, beautiful things. 5 weeks without Heathcliff. The Catherine who returned to Wuthering Heights was transformed. She wore silk now, carried herself like a lady, laughed at different things. Heathcliff barely recognized her. She laughed at his dirty face, his wild hair, his rough hands. Just once, just carelessly. But Heathcliff never forgot the sting of that moment. Edgar Linton began visiting Catherine regularly. He was everything Heathcliff was not. Gentle, educated, refined, wealthy, and clearly falling deeply, hopelessly in love. Heathcliff's jealousy exploded one afternoon. He threw hot applesauce in Edgar's face, was beaten by Hindley, and dragged away swearing vengeance on them all. Catherine wept that night in her room. She loved Heathcliff with her whole soul. But she couldn't see how to love him and have the life she craved. Nellie found Catherine in the kitchen that night, unable to sleep, and there, by dying firelight, Catherine made the confession that would echo through generations. "I am Heathcliff," Catherine whispered fiercely. "Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. Linton's is as different as moonbeam from lightning." But Catherine would marry Edgar anyway. His money and status would let her lift Heathcliff from degradation. Or so she convinced herself that desperate night. What neither woman knew. Heathcliff crouched in the shadows, listening. He heard only that marrying him would degrade her. He heard nothing of her deeper love. Before Catherine could finish explaining her love, Heathcliff fled. Into the storm, into the night, into 3 years of complete and terrifying silence. Catherine's grief was frightening. She ran onto the moors in rain, calling his name for hours, returning delirious with fever that nearly killed her. When Catherine recovered, something had hardened in her. She accepted Edgar's proposal quietly. They married at Gimmerton Chapel on a grey autumn morning. Life at Thrushcross Grange suited Catherine surprisingly well. She played the gracious lady, kept house beautifully, seemed almost content, almost at peace. Meanwhile at the Heights, Frances gave birth to a son, Hareton. The joy lasted only weeks. Frances died coughing blood, leaving Hindley shattered beyond repair. Hindley drowned his grief in whiskey and gambling. The Heights fell into chaos. He threatened servants with pistols, lost money to sharp strangers, cursed God endlessly. Little Hareton grew up like a weed, ignored by everyone. Nellie tried to care for him, but Hindley drove her away to work at the Grange. 3 years passed at Thrushcross Grange. 3 quiet years of books and gardens and gentle Edgar. Catherine seemed settled. Perhaps she had found peace after all. Then one September evening, a servant announced a visitor. Catherine went to the door and found herself face to face with a ghost made flesh. Heathcliff had returned. Wealthy, mysterious, hardened into something magnificent and terrifying. Catherine flew into his arms with a cry that shook the house. Edgar watched this reunion with cold eyes. He allowed Heathcliff to visit, against every instinct, because refusing would have broken Catherine completely. But he watched, he waited. Isabella Linton noticed Heathcliff too. Edgar's young sister was enchanted by his dark mystery, his romantic aura. She began to dream dangerous dreams. Heathcliff saw Isabella's interest and something cold calculated behind his eyes. Edgar's sister. Edgar's property. Another way to wound those who had wounded him. Catherine warned Isabella sharply. Heathcliff was no romantic hero, she said. He was a fierce, pitiless wolf. Loving him would destroy her utterly. Isabella refused to listen. She was young and romantic and certain she knew better. Love would transform him, she believed. Love would gentle the wolf. The confrontation came violently. Edgar ordered Heathcliff from his house forever. Catherine screamed at both men. Something in her mind began to crack under the pressure. Catherine locked herself in her room and refused to eat. Days passed. She tore at her pillow, saw visions, spoke to people who weren't there. In her delirium, Catherine cried out for the moors. She saw her childhood bed at the Heights, the scratched names. Heathcliff's face when they were young and free. While Catherine raved, Isabella eloped with Heathcliff. They married hastily, scandalously. She had chosen her wolf. Now she would learn what that meant. Edgar received the news like a blade to the heart. His sister was dead to him now, he said. She had chosen her fate with open eyes. Isabella's life at Wuthering Heights became a waking nightmare. Heathcliff despised her openly, mocked her romantic illusions, made clear she was merely a possession won from Edgar. Isabella wrote desperate letters to Nellie describing her horror. Hindley stumbling drunk with loaded pistols. Heathcliff's cruel amusement. The brutality behind those handsome features. Catherine's illness worsened by the day. No one had told her she was pregnant. The fever consumed her, tangling past and present into one terrible dream. Heathcliff bribed a servant to let him into the Grange one evening when Edgar was away. He had to see Catherine. He had to see her before the end. The moment Heathcliff entered Catherine's room, years of separation collapsed. She reached for him weakly. He fell to his knees beside her bed, shaking. Accusations flew between them. You abandoned me, you married him, you broke my heart. You broke your own. All the poison of years erupting at once. You loved me, Heathcliff said, his voice breaking. How could you betray that? How could you choose him when your soul belonged to me? Catherine's defense was equally fierce. She had done it for him, for them both. To give them a future. He had left before she could explain. Their argument dissolved into an embrace so fierce it seemed death itself couldn't separate them. They clung together knowing these might be their final moments. Edgar's footsteps sounded in the hall. Heathcliff had to be dragged away. Catherine fainted in Nellie's arms, clutching at air where he had been. Catherine died that night giving birth to a daughter. Her last breath was Heathcliff's name. The baby named Catherine too survived. Her mother did not. When Heathcliff learned Catherine was dead, something in him shattered beyond repair. He beat his head against a tree, until blood ran down his face, howling. He cursed her even as he mourned. Haunt me, he cried to the empty air. Take any form, drive me mad, but don't leave me in this abyss. They buried Catherine not in the chapel with the Lintons, but on the moor edge overlooking the heath she loved. Wild land, her true home. Nellie thought often about that grave. Caught between the churchyard and the moors. Between Edgar, who gave her comfort, and Heathcliff, who shared her soul. Isabella finally escaped Wuthering Heights, fleeing south to London. She was pregnant with Heathcliff's child, carrying away the only part of him she could salvage. In London, Isabella gave birth to a son named Linton. The boy was sickly from birth, frail and petulant, nothing like his fierce dark father. Hindley drank himself to death that same year. His gambling debts were astronomical, and somehow Heathcliff had acquired every single one. He now owned Wuthering Heights. Little Hareton was now orphan and heir to nothing. Heathcliff looked at the boy with strange intensity. Here was Hindley's son. Here was his revenge. Heathcliff raised Hareton deliberately ignorant. No books, no education, no refinement. He would make Hindley's heir exactly what Hindley had tried to make him. A brute. Years flowed past at Thrushcross Grange. Young Catherine grew up isolated but happy, exploring the gardens, reading every book, never allowed past the park walls. Edgar devoted himself entirely to his daughter. He never remarried, rarely spoke of Catherine. But sometimes Nellie caught him staring at young Kathy's eyes. Her mother's eyes exactly. On her 16th birthday, Kathy climbed the garden wall for the first time. The moors stretched before her, purple and gold and infinite, freedom she'd never imagined. She wandered far and met a young man shooting birds near Wuthering Heights. His name was Hareton. He was rough but handsome. Neither knew they were cousins. Curiosity drew Kathy to Wuthering Heights itself. The forbidden house on the hill. She wandered in like her mother had once wandered to the Grange. Heathcliff opened the door himself. For one terrible moment he saw Catherine standing there, same dark eyes, same wild spirit. Then he recognized the Linton features too. Far away in London, Isabella died of consumption. Her last act was arranging for her son Linton to be sent north to his father at Wuthering Heights. Young Linton arrived at the Heights a frightened, whimpering creature. Heathcliff looked at his own son with undisguised contempt. This was Isabella's weakness made flesh. Heathcliff sneered at the boy's complaints about cold, about rough food, about uncomfortable beds. This pathetic creature would still serve his purpose. Edgar's hair must be displaced. Heathcliff engineered meetings between young Cathy and Linton. Secret letters passed between them. Cathy pitied her sickly cousin. Pity, Heathcliff knew, could transform into something useful. The correspondence bloomed into secret visits. Cathy would slip away to the Heights, bringing Linton books and treats. She felt needed. She felt important. That was the trap. Cathy began to fancy herself in love with Linton. His helplessness touched her. She dreamed of nursing him to health, of happy futures together on the moors. Edgar discovered the secret correspondence and forbade all contact. His daughter must never go to that house, never see Heathcliff's son, never repeat her mother's fatal choices. But Edgar's health was failing rapidly. Consumption hollowed him day by day. Cathy nursed him devotedly, watching her beloved father fade like autumn leaves. Heathcliff's scheme crystallized into cruel precision. If Cathy married Linton before Edgar died, everything, the Grange, the lands, the fortune, would pass through Linton to Heathcliff himself. A desperate message from Linton lured Cathy to the Heights. He was dying, the note said. He needed her. She rode out immediately, Nellie struggling to keep pace. Heathcliff locked them both inside Wuthering Heights. No exit until Cathy married Linton. No food, no messages, no escape. Days passed in that prison while Edgar lay dying. In desperation and despair, Cathy agreed to marry Linton. The ceremony was hurried and grim. She signed away her future with tears streaming down her face. Cathy escaped the Heights through a window and ran to the Grange. She found her father still alive, barely. She held his hand through his final hours. Edgar died peacefully with his daughter's kiss on his forehead. His last words were of Catherine, his wife, his love, waiting for him somewhere beyond the grave. The lawyers came with cold efficiency. Through Linton, Heathcliff now controlled Thrushcross Grange. Every room Catherine had loved, every book Edgar had cherished, all belonged to her tormentor. Cathy was dragged back to Wuthering Heights like a prisoner. She was installed in her mother's old room, surrounded by ghosts, married to a dying boy. Linton died within months of the wedding. He had never been strong. Heathcliff barely acknowledged his son's passing. The boy had served his purpose. Cathy became a ghost herself at Wuthering Heights. She spoke to no one, helped no one, moved through rooms like shadow. Grief and anger consumed her equally. Hareton tried awkwardly to befriend her. He brought her wildflowers from the moors. She threw them in the fire without a word. He tried again anyway. Cathy mocked Hareton's ignorance cruelly. He couldn't read his own name above the door, she sneered. He was no better than a dog. Her words cut deep. But Nellie noticed something shifting in Heathcliff himself. His fierce attention wandered. His eyes followed Hareton with strange expression. His rage seemed somehow exhausted. Heathcliff confessed to Nellie that he saw Catherine everywhere now, In Hareton's dark eyes, his own eyes, but also hers. In young Cathy's spirit, so like her mother. One night Heathcliff did something strange. He went to the kirkyard and had Catherine's coffin opened. He looked upon her face, 18 years dead but somehow perfect. He told Nellie about feeling Catherine's presence for years. Not quite there, but almost. Torturing him with nearness. Now, soon, he would finally reach her. Heathcliff stopped eating. Food held no interest. Sleep brought only dreams of Catherine. He was preparing, Nellie realized. Preparing to join her at last. Something unexpected began happening between Cathy and Hareton. She found him trying to read in secret. Instead of mocking, she offered to teach him. A door cracked open. The reading lessons became daily rituals. Cathy leaned close to point out words. Hareton's face lit when he mastered a sentence. Something like friendship, or more, began to grow. Heathcliff watched the young people together and saw ghosts. Two dark heads bent over a book. Catherine and himself, so many years ago. The cycle beginning again. Now Nellie's tale catches up to the present moment. That winter night, when Lockwood stumbled into the Heights and woke screaming from a ghost's cold touch. Lockwood understands now why Heathcliff threw open that window, calling into the storm. 20 years of waiting for Catherine. 20 years of that terrible, faithful grief. Heathcliff's obsession has only deepened with age. He walks the moors at night, calling Catherine's name, reaching toward something Nellie cannot see, but knows is there. Something in Heathcliff is finally breaking. His persecution of Hareton grows half-hearted. His cruelty toward young Cathy lacks its former venom. Revenge is losing its savor. Young Cathy's coldness toward Hareton begins thawing despite herself. His gentle persistence touches something in her. His patience wears down her walls stone by stone. Their reading lessons become the center of each day. Hareton's rough hands trace letters, while Cathy guides him patiently. Words become bridges between their wounded hearts. When Heathcliff mocks Hareton's stumbling reading, something extraordinary happens. Hareton stands up to him, defends Cathy, refuses to cower. The worm has finally turned. Heathcliff's response is strange. Instead of rage, something like wonder crosses his face. He sees Catherine's fire in Hareton's eyes. His own eyes. The resemblance staggering. That night Heathcliff tells Nellie he's wary of everything. Destroying has lost its pleasure. He achieved his revenge completely, and found it hollow as old bones. He reveals his funeral plans with terrible calm. He'll be buried beside Catherine. He's already arranged it. Their coffin sides removed so their dust can mingle eternally. He describes the coffins in detail. Edgar on one side, himself on the other. Catherine between them. But only his side and hers will be open, Edgar excluded even in death. Nellie listens to these plans with horror and strange compassion. She has watched this love story unfold for 30 years. She understands its terrible logic now. Spring arrives slowly on the moors. Snow retreats. Purple heather begins spreading like bruises across brown hills. Life insists on returning despite everything. Cathy and Hareton work together, planting a small garden outside the Heights. Flowers where there had been only mud. Beauty reclaiming territory from decades of neglect. Heathcliff watches them from the window without interfering. Their happiness seems alien to him, incomprehensible. He cannot remember what such simple joy felt like. His appetite has vanished completely now. Nellie sets plates before him that return untouched. He is hollow, she realizes, emptying himself to make room for Catherine. A strange light has entered Heathcliff's dark eyes. Not madness exactly. Something more like anticipation. Like a traveler who finally sees home after long exile. He wanders the moors through all weathers now. Returns soaked with rain, covered in mud, yet smiling. He tells Nellie he's been walking with Catherine at last. That smile unsettles Nellie more than his rage ever did. It's the smile of someone who has given up on this world entirely. Who is already halfway gone. She's near. Heathcliff whispers to Nellie one evening. I feel her everywhere now, not tormenting me anymore. Calling me. It won't be long. He describes what approaches with terrible precision. A presence just beyond his vision. A voice just below hearing. A touch almost felt. Catherine, waiting at the threshold. That final night, Heathcliff retires to Catherine's old bedroom, the room with scratched names. The room where Lockwood saw the ghost. He locks the door behind him. A storm builds over Wuthering Heights that night. Wind screams around the chimneys. Rain batters the small windows. The house groans like a living thing in pain. Morning comes gray and quiet. The storm has passed. Nellie knocks at the bedroom door, no answer. She calls his name, silence. Her heart knows before she opens it. The room is cold. The window stands wide open, rain soaking the floor, the bed, the still figure lying there. Heathcliff has not moved since sometime in the night. Heathcliff lies in Catherine's childhood bed, eyes open, lips parted in something like a smile. Rain glistens on his face like tears, or like kisses from the storm. His hand reaches toward the open window. Toward the moors. Toward wherever Catherine waited for him. Nellie realizes he finally caught what he'd been chasing. Nellie tries to close his eyes. They won't stay shut. That strange smile persists. He looks triumphant in death, not peaceful. A man who won his final battle. Whatever he saw in that final moment, whatever came through that window on the storm, it brought him joy. After a lifetime of torment, Heathcliff died happy. Word spreads through the village quickly. The dark master of Wuthering Heights is dead. Some cross themselves. Some weep. Some merely shrug. But the stories begin immediately. A shepherd boy claims he saw them walking together. Heathcliff and a dark-haired woman on the moors at dawn. Hand in hand, heading toward Penistone Crags. Nellie dismisses such talk as superstition. She's a practical woman. But alone at night, she remembers Heathcliff's certainty. And she wonders. She'll always wonder. They bury Heathcliff beside Catherine as he arranged. 3 graves now in a row where the kirkyard meets the open moor. Edgar, Catherine, Heathcliff, triangle eternal. In death as in life, Catherine lies between the 2 men who loved her. Edgar's devotion on one side, Heathcliff's obsession on the other. She belongs to both, and neither. With Heathcliff's death, young Cathy inherits everything. Both houses, both estates. She is finally free. The shadow that haunted her life has lifted at last. Cathy and Hareton announce their engagement quietly. They'll marry on New Year's Day. Love has grown from the ashes of so much destruction. Hope outlasts revenge. They plan to move to Thrushcross Grange after the wedding. The Heights will be left to decay, perhaps. Or maybe future generations will reclaim it. Time will decide. Hareton devours books now with the same intensity he once used for physical labor. His mind, so long starved, expands rapidly. Cathy watches his growth with pride. Cathy teaches with endless patience. She corrects his spelling gently, celebrates each improvement, never mocks his struggles. Love transforms both teacher and student together. Old Joseph grumbles constantly about these changes. He predicts doom and damnation. Young people these days have no respect. The old servant shuffles off muttering prayers. Nellie begins the slow work of preparing for the move, packing away decades of accumulated memories. Each object holds a story. Some she handles carefully, some she cannot bear to touch. She walks through Wuthering Heights one last time, room by room. Here Hindley drank himself to death. Here Isabella wept. Here children laughed before tragedy found them. In Catherine's old room, the scratched names still show faintly on the windowsill. Catherine Earnshaw, Catherine Heathcliff, Catherine Linton, all the names she might have been. The carved bed where Heathcliff died, where Lockwood saw the ghost child, where 2 lovers finally reunited perhaps. Nellie shivers though the night is not cold. 30 years she has watched this family destroy itself and rebuild. 30 years of secrets, lies, love, hate, death, and birth. She carries the whole story now. Lockwood sits quietly when the tale ends. He has no words adequate to what he's heard. A love story, a horror story. Both seem true simultaneously. Before leaving Yorkshire, Lockwood walks to the kirkyard one evening. He needs to see the graves himself, to make the story real in stone and earth. Edgar Linton's headstone is proper and civilized. Names and dates carved deep. Beloved husband and father. Every respectable virtue listed. Every expectation of heaven expressed. Catherine's stone stands between the two men. Weathered more than Edgar's somehow, though buried in the same year. Wind and rain have softened her name like a sigh. Heathcliff's grave is newest and barest. Just his name, just the dates. Nothing else. He needed no epitaph. Everyone who mattered knew exactly who he was. Moths flutter soft over the graves in the evening warmth. Summer has come full to Yorkshire. The moors blaze purple. Life insists on continuing despite all death. The hither stretches to every horizon now, purple sea under purple sky. It was Catherine's favorite sight. Perhaps she sees it still through whatever eyes the dead possess. Lockwood stands among the graves as darkness falls. Such peace here now. Such stillness. How could restless spirits not find rest in soil this gentle, this embracing? Yet the shepherd boy's story echoes in his mind. Two figures walking at dawn, hand in hand, hating toward the crags where children once played and dreamed together. Lockwood chooses to believe in peace. Standing here with the quiet dead, feeling the gentle evening air, he cannot imagine anything but rest beneath this kind earth. The three graves will settle deeper into the earth year by year. Stone will weather. Names will fade. But the soil will mix what lies beneath, slowly, eternally. Lockwood leaves Yorkshire soon after. Returns to city life, to drawing rooms and propriety. But something of the moors stays with him. Something of the story never leaves. His last glimpse of Wuthering Heights shows it dark against clouded sky. Ancient stones that have weathered centuries. The house will outlast all the fragile lives it sheltered. Thrushcross Grange glows warm in the valley below. Smoke rises from chimneys. Young laughter echoes faintly. Life choosing to continue. Hope making its home there. Two houses, two worlds, always existing in tension. The Heights raw and wild. The Grange civilized and gentle. Catherine torn between them. Heathcliff belonging to neither. The moors connect and separate both houses eternally. Wild land refusing to be tamed. Belonging to neither civilization nor chaos. Catherine's true kingdom. Perhaps. The story circles back to where it began. A stranger coming to Wuthering Heights. A dream of a ghost at the window. A tale told by firelight. That ghost at the window haunts us still. The child Catherine crying to come in. Lost on the moors for 20 years. Waiting for Heathcliff to let her in. Was it a dream? Was it a vision? Lockwood never knew for certain. Some truths slip through the cracks of ordinary perception. Some stories refuse simple explanations. Heathcliff's voice calling into the storm. "Come in! Come in!" 20 years of waiting concentrated in that cry. All his terrible patience finally rewarded. Perhaps. Now they wait no longer. If ghosts walk those moors, they walk together. The separation that defined their lives ended the moment Heathcliff stopped breathing. Love beyond death, that was what Heathcliff demanded. That was what he was willing to become a monster to achieve. And perhaps, somehow, he achieved it. But destruction yielded to growth in the end. Young Cathy and Hareton plant flowers where Heathcliff planted only revenge. Love chooses creation over destruction, generation after generation. The cycle of revenge is broken at last. Hareton forgives what was done to him. Cathy forgives what was done to her. They choose each other over the poison of the past. Hareton reclaims his birthright not through violence, but through patience. The Earnshaw here rises from degradation through education, through kindness, through stubborn hope. Heathcliff's cruelty defeated by its opposite. Cathy carries both bloodlines forward now. Earnshaw wildness from her mother. Linton gentleness from her father. She is the bridge between the two worlds. Their children will have roots in both houses, both families, both ways of being. The war between wildness and civilization ends in the marriage of opposites. Wuthering Heights may crumble eventually. Stones will fall, roof will cave, wind and rain will do their patient work. But what happened there echoes eternally. Thrushcross Grange shelters the new family warmly. Its civilized rooms soften with children's laughter. Gardens bloom, harvest comes. Life proves stronger than any curse. Old Joseph shakes his head at everything new. He predicts fire and brimstone any day now. Young people laugh gently at his prophecies. They know better. The storm has passed. Nellie watches all this with quiet satisfaction. Finally, after 30 years, a happy ending. Perhaps it was always coming. Perhaps the darkness was necessary to reach this light. The seasons keep turning on the moors as they always have. Winter strips the hither bare. Spring brings it back. Summer blazes purple. Autumn fades to brown. The storms still come howling down from the north. They batter Wuthering Heights just as they always did. But spring follows every winter. It always has, it always will. The heather dies back to earth each autumn, leaving only bare stalks against gray sky. But roots sleep deep underground. Come August, purple returns like a promise kept. Catherine's spirit lives in this landscape perhaps. Not as a ghost, but as part of the moors themselves. Windswept and wild and refusing to be tamed ever. Heathcliff found his heaven at last, not the preacher's heaven of harps and clouds, but the only heaven he ever wanted. Catherine. Forever. Nothing else mattered. What does the book ask us to feel about such love? Is it admirable or terrible? Should we envy Heathcliff's devotion or fear it? Brontë offers no easy answer. Emily Brontë trusted her readers to judge for themselves. She showed the love in all its beauty and all its horror. She let the story speak its own complicated truth. Love as destructive force. That's certainly part of this story. Heathcliff's love destroyed Isabella, destroyed Hindley, nearly destroyed 2 generations of children caught in its path. But love as transcendent power, that's here too. A love that survives death, that refuses all boundaries. That makes Heathcliff smile in his final moment after decades of suffering. Both truths exist simultaneously. That's the novel's genius. Love is terrible, love is beautiful. Love destroys, love redeems. All true at once, depending on where you stand. Class and revenge intertwine throughout the story. Heathcliff was despised for his mysterious origins, his dark skin, his poverty. His fury at exclusion fueled everything that followed. Nature versus civilization, the eternal battle. The Heights raw and elemental, the Grange soft and cultured. Catherine belonging to both, fitting perfectly in neither. Catherine's wildness refused all taming. She played the lady but never became one. Her essential self stayed forever on the moors with Heathcliff, free and fierce and untamed. Heathcliff as romantic hero or villain. Readers have argued this for nearly 2 centuries. He is both, perhaps, neither. Something literature had never quite seen before. Catherine as tragic figure, destroyed by an impossible choice. Loving Heathcliff absolutely but choosing Edgar's world. The split killed her, as splits of the soul always must. Edgar as gentle victim, loving someone who could never fully return it. He gave Catherine comfort, children, a beautiful home. He could not give her what Heathcliff gave her herself. Isabella as warning, romantic illusions meeting harsh reality. She loved the idea of Heathcliff, not the man himself. She paid terribly for that mistake. Hindley as cautionary tale, jealousy breeding self-destruction. He hated Heathcliff for stealing his father's love. That hatred consumed him long before whiskey finished the job. Nellie Dean, our guide through this labyrinth. Servant who saw everything, remembered everything, shaped everything she told. Without her, the story couldn't reach us at all. But Nellie's reliability has been questioned by readers. She has her own biases, her own blind spots. She judged Catherine harshly at times. Did she tell us everything true? Lockwood's limitations show clearly too. City gentleman missing deeper truths. Frightened by what he glimpsed. Perhaps not the ideal witness to such a wild tale. Frame within frame within frame. That's how we receive this story. Lockwood tells us what Nellie told him about what others told her. Truth filters through many lenses. Whose version do we believe? What happened that we never heard? The novel preserves mystery at its core. We know the story. We never fully understand it. Do ghosts really walk those moors? The shepherd believes, Nellie doubts. Lockwood wonders. The book refuses to say for certain. Perhaps that's the point. The reader must decide the meaning. Brontë gives evidence but no verdict. The story demands our active engagement. Easy answers are not available, nor wanted. That's why we keep returning to Wuthering Heights, trying to understand, finding new meanings each time. The book changes as we change, as all great books do. Each reading reveals something new. Details missed before suddenly blaze with significance. The book teaches us how to read it, slowly, over years, over lives. The story haunts like its ghosts. Once read, never forgotten. Catherine and Heathcliff take up residence in our minds. They refuse to leave entirely. Emily Brontë achieved immortality with this single novel. She died a year after publication, age 30. But Catherine and Heathcliff live forever in her words. Wuthering Heights still stands in our imagination. We can walk its rooms any time we open the book. Hear wind in the chimneys. Feel cold at the windows. The moors stretch forever in memory. Purple hither, gray boulders, endless sky. That landscape belongs to us now too. Emily's gift to every reader who comes. Catherine and Heathcliff wait there always, for each new reader. Ready to tell their story again. To break hearts again. To haunt again, beautifully and terribly. The story ends but continues. Every time someone opens the book, it begins again. Lockwood rides to the heights. The dogs snarl. Heathcliff broods by the fire. That's the magic of great literature. Death is never final there. Love is never lost. And somewhere on the moors forever, Catherine and Heathcliff walk hand in hand. Now let's step back from the story itself. Picture the world that created it. Yorkshire, 1820. A stone parsonage on a windy hill, a family unlike any other. Patrick Brontë, an Irish clergyman, brought his wife and 6 small children to this remote parish. Haworth was wild country. The moors pressed close against the village edge. Maria Brontë died within 2 years of arriving. Cancer took her slowly while her children watched. The oldest was 7. Emily was just 3. They would grow up motherless. From the parsonage windows, the children could see the graveyard. Headstones crowded close. In Haworth, the average lifespan was barely 25 years. Death was the nearest neighbor. The children turned inward, toward each other. They created elaborate imaginary worlds together. Glass Town. Angria. Gondel kingdoms populated with heroes, villains, impossible loves, and grand betrayals. They wrote their stories in microscopic handwriting in tiny homemade books smaller than matchboxes. Hundreds of pages in script barely visible to adult eyes, worlds within worlds. Emily was the mystery among mysteries. The quietest sister, the fiercest. She spoke little to strangers, but poured oceans of feeling into her private writings and her music. Emily's bond with the moors was almost supernatural. She walked for hours in all weather, returning mud splattered and wind, whip. Eyes bright with something she never explained to others. Independence burned in Emily like fever. She refused conventional paths, refused to simper or charm, refused the expected feminine graces of her era. She would be herself or nothing. School nearly destroyed her. Sent away to be educated, Emily stopped eating, stopped sleeping, began to fade like a plant torn from native soil. They had to bring her home. Her dog keeper was as fierce as she was. A huge mastiff that terrified everyone else. Emily tamed him with her bare hands, punished him herself, loved him absolutely. In the evenings, Emily played piano for hours. Not delicate drawing room pieces, but wild improvisations that filled the house. Her music was as untamed as everything else about her. In 1842, Charlotte convinced Emily to travel to Brussels to study languages. Emily went reluctantly. Foreign soil held no appeal for someone whose soul was rooted in Yorkshire peat. Brussels was torture elegantly disguised. Emily learned French and German rapidly, brilliantly, then retreated into herself. The professor called her stubborn. She didn't argue. She counted days until home. When their aunt's death called them back to Haworth, Emily never left again. She became the parsonage housekeeper, baking bread, tending fires, walking her beloved moors, content at last. The 3 surviving sisters, Charlotte, Emily, Annan, wrote secretly through 1845 and 46. each working on a novel, each keeping her work private from the others, mostly. Charlotte discovered Emily's poems by accident. She found a notebook and read verses that stunned her. Wild, powerful, unlike anything she'd encountered. She told Emily what she'd done. Emily's fury was terrifying. Days of cold silence. Charlotte had violated something sacred. It took weeks of persuasion before Emily would even discuss the possibility of publication. Charlotte persisted with characteristic determination. These poems deserved readers, she argued. The world needed to hear Emily's voice. Slowly, grudgingly, Emily relented. Anonymity would be essential. In 1846, a slim volume appeared. Poems by Currer, Ellis, and Acton Bell. 3 brothers, the public assumed. The sisters had chosen male pseudonyms quite deliberately. Why pretend to be men? The sisters knew how critics treated women writers. Condescension at best. Outright dismissal often. Male names would let their work be judged on its merits alone. The poetry volume sold exactly 2 copies. A complete commercial failure. But the sisters refused discouragement. They were already deep into their novels. The real work had begun. Picture the parsonage dining room, evening after evening. 3 sisters circling the table, reading their manuscripts aloud, pacing with creative energy. Father retired early, they had the night. Emily wrote Wuthering Heights in that room, in those walks, in those wild rambles on the moor. The story poured out of her like something long waiting to be released. Charlotte worked on Jane Eyre, her own fierce love story. A governess who demanded equality. A brooding master with secrets. It would make her famous almost overnight. Anne wrote Agnes Grey, quieter, sharper, based on her miserable experience as a governess. She chronicled the small cruelties the powerful inflict on the powerless. Her gentle protest. Different publishers accepted each novel. Jane Eyre appeared first, in October 1847. Then Wuthering Heights and Agnes Grey together in December. 3 novels from one house in 1 year. Jane Eyre exploded into success. Everyone wanted to know who Currer Bell was. Critics praised its passion, its morality, its unforgettable heroine. Charlotte's voice had found its audience. Wuthering Heights received a very different welcome. Critics were baffled. Disturbed, they called it powerful but repulsive. Original but morally confused. Where was the lesson? Where was the redemption? Too odiously and abominably pagan to be palatable. One reviewer declared. Others acknowledged its strange power while condemning its subject matter. Ellis Bell had written something unprecedented and unsettling. Some readers loved it immediately, recognizing its dark genius. But they were minority voices. The general public wanted Jane Eyre's satisfying romance. Wuthering Heights offered something stranger and harder. Critics particularly struggled with Heathcliff. Was he hero or villain? Neither category fit. Victorian fiction demanded clear moral lines. Emily had blurred them beyond recognition. Some reviewers questioned whether a woman could have written something so violent, so coarse, so unflinching. Surely Ellis Bell was a man. Or should be, they implied. Emily never responded publicly to any criticism. She never explained herself, never defended her vision. Never engaged with the literary world that couldn't quite comprehend her gift. Where was the moral? Critics demanded. Good Victorian novels taught lessons. Heroes were rewarded. Villains were punished. Readers were improved. Wuthering Heights did none of these things simply. There was no hero to cheer, no clear villain to hiss. Catherine was passionate but selfish. Heathcliff was wronged but monstrous. Everyone was simultaneously right and wrong. By autumn of 1848, Emily was coughing. The familiar terrible cough that had killed so many Brontes. Consumption. Tuberculosis. The white plague of the 19th century. Emily refused all help with characteristic stubbornness. No doctor would examine her. No medicine would touch her lips. She would meet death on her own terms, as she had met life. On her final morning, she rose at 7 as always. Dressed herself, came downstairs, fed Keeper, tried to pick up her sewing. Then she could no longer pretend. Emily Brontë died at 2 o'clock that afternoon. December 19, 1848. She was 30 years old. Wuthering Heights had existed in the world for exactly 1 year. Charlotte's grief was beyond words. She had lost her closest companion in that strange sisterhood of genius. The parsonage felt suddenly vast and empty. 2 sisters remained. Their brother Branwell had died just 3 months before, destroyed by alcohol and laudanum and disappointed dreams. The golden boy of the family had become its first great loss. Anne went next. May 1849. 5 months after Emily, consumption claimed her too. Charlotte held her hand in Scarborough, watching the sea, watching her sister slip away. In 9 months, Charlotte lost 3 siblings, Branwell in September, Emily in December. Anne in May. She returned to Haworth alone. The parsonage held only her and her father now. Charlotte took it upon herself to protect Emily's reputation. She wrote a preface for the novel's 2nd edition, explaining, perhaps over-explaining, her sister's strange vision to a still, skeptical public. Some changes Charlotte made were controversial. She softened certain Yorkshire dialect passages, smoothed some rough edges. Later scholars would argue she had weakened Emily's original power. Charlotte portrayed Emily as a kind of wild, untutored genius, nursed from wrong sources, she wrote. Raised on the wild moors like a half-savage creature. The description would endure. Victorian readers remained uneasy with Wuthering Heights for decades. It was acknowledged as powerful but held at arm's length. Too strange. Too dark. Too much. Gradually, voices began calling for reassessment. Later generations saw what the Victorians missed. Here was psychological depth before psychology had a name. Here was modernism before its time. By the 20th century, Wuthering Heights had become undisputed masterpiece. Virginia Woolf praised it. Universities taught it. Readers everywhere fell under its wild, strange spell. Freudian readers found dark psychology everywhere. The return of the repressed. The death drive. Sibling complexes. Emily had mapped the unconscious. They claimed before Freud named it. Feminist scholars reclaimed Emily as revolutionary voice. She had written female passion without apology. Catherine's desires were as fierce as any man's. Emily had refused Victorian constraints entirely. Postcolonial scholars asked new questions about Heathcliff. Where did he come from? Liverpool was England's main slave trading port. His dark skin was mentioned repeatedly. What was Emily suggesting? The text calls Heathcliff dark, repeatedly. A dirty, ragged, black-haired child. Later, dark almost as if it came from the devil. What race was Emily imagining? We can only wonder. Mr. Earnshaw found him starving on Liverpool streets. In 1802, Liverpool's docks teemed with displaced people from throughout the British Empire. Heathcliff could have been anyone from anywhere. Class readings multiplied too. Heathcliff's story was about power and property. About who gets to own, who gets owned. About revenge against a system designed to exclude. Gothic traditions certainly shaped the novel. Haunted houses, vengeful revenants, family secrets, ancestral curses. Emily knew her Mrs. Radcliffe, her dark romances. But she transformed them utterly. The romantic poets haunted Emily's imagination too. Byron's dark heroes. Shelley's wild nature worship. The sublime terror of mountain storms and endless moors. Emily breathed this air from childhood. Yet nothing before quite prepared readers for Wuthering Heights. It arrived like something from another world entirely. Emily's singular vision remains unique nearly 2 centuries later. The first film adaptation came in 1920, a silent version now lost. Actors posed dramatically on studio moors. The hunger to see this story enacted began early. The 1939 Hollywood version became definitive for generations. William Wyler directing. Laurence Olivier as Heathcliff, dark, brooding, impossibly handsome. Golden Age glamour meeting Yorkshire grit. Merle Oberon played Catherine with restrained passion, restrained by the production code's limits. The film softened the novel's edges, made it a more conventional love story. Still, magic remained. That version ended with Catherine's death, the story's midpoint. All the second-generation complexity vanished. Hollywood wanted clear romance, clear tragedy, clear ending. The novel's darker depths were avoided. Most adaptations follow that pattern, ending when Catherine dies, before Heathcliff's real darkness fully blooms. The revenge plot against the children disturbs filmmakers even now. Ralph Fiennes brought his intensity to Heathcliff in 1992, closer to the novel's savagery. Critics called it disturbing. That was rather the point, as Emily knew. Juliette Binoche played both Catherines in that version, mother and daughter. The doubling made visual what the novel suggests: generations echoing, patterns repeating, love transcending time through bloodlines. Adaptations continue appearing, for television, for film, in different languages, different settings. Japanese versions, Indian versions, Mexican telenovelas. The story travels wherever passion is understood. Then came Kate Bush in 1978. A teenage girl wrote a song capturing Catherine's voice perfectly. Heathcliff, it's me, Cathy. I've come home. 3 minutes of haunted genius. Bush captured Catherine's ghostly longing in 4 verses. Let me in your window. I'm so cold. The song reached #1. A new generation discovered the novel through music. That song never stopped resonating. Every year now, thousands gather to dance the Wuthering Heights, dance together. Red dresses, outstretched arms. Catherine multiplied across parks and beaches worldwide. A song about a 19th century novel creates 21st century flash mobs. Emily might have found this very strange. Or perhaps she would have understood. Stories need bodies to live through. Haworth itself became pilgrimage site. The parsonage where Emily wrote is now a museum. Visitors walk her rooms, touch her desk. Look through windows she once looked through. You can still walk the moors Emily walked. The path to Top Withens. The ruined farmhouse sometimes called the original Heights. Hither still blooms purple, wind still howls. The Brontë Society has preserved this legacy since 1893. Scholars, fans, pilgrims all welcome. The parsonage holds manuscripts, tiny childhood books, Emily's own writing desk where genius flowed. Emily's desk is remarkably small, just a portable writing slope. She carried it room to room, more to more perhaps. Wuthering Heights emerged from something you could hold in one hand. The heather still blooms every August as it did in Emily's time. Purple waves across the hills. The landscape that shaped her vision remains, waiting for anyone who comes to see. The wind still howls around Wuthering Heights, or its inspirations. The weathered farmhouses that gave Emily her model. Some things endure beyond any human lifetime. The novel exists now in almost every language. Japanese students read it. Brazilian book clubs discuss it. Indian teenagers swoon over Heathcliff. Catherine's passion translates. Japanese readers especially love the Brontë. Something in that intensity resonates deeply. Japanese editions of Wuthering Heights sell steadily. Generation after generation, Emily has found a second home. Indian adaptations have flourished too. The passion translates perfectly. Forbidden love across class boundaries. Revenge spanning generations. Indian cinema knows these stories in its bones. Each culture finds its own Wuthering Heights. The specific details of Yorkshire transform, but the emotional core remains. Love, loss, revenge, reunion. These are human constants. Why does this particular story endure when so many Victorian novels gather dust? We keep returning to that question. We keep finding new answers. Perhaps because love this extreme fascinates us. We may not want it for ourselves, but we cannot stop watching it. The fire that consumes draws every eye. Perhaps because destruction this complete awes us. Heathcliff's revenge devastates everything it touches. Such totality is terrible and magnificent. We witness what we could never permit ourselves. Perhaps because redemption comes anyway in the final pages. Cathy and Hareton choose love over hate. The cycle breaks. Hope persists despite everything. We need that reassurance. Emily understood human hearts. Their capacity for both magnificent love and terrible cruelty. She showed us ourselves in extremity. The mirror she held up still reflects truly. She showed us truth by pushing everything to its limits. In Wuthering Heights, love becomes absolute. Hate becomes absolute. Death becomes porous. Life becomes eternal. Extremity reveals essence. One novel was enough. Emily didn't need to write another. Wuthering Heights said everything she had to say about love and death, and the wild places of the soul. Emily Brontë is immortal now through Heathcliff and Catherine. As long as readers exist, they will exist. As long as anyone loves too much, their story makes sense. Her ghost walks too, perhaps. In every reading, every dreaming, every pilgrim who climbs the Yorkshire hills, seeking what she found there. Emily is the moors now, she always was. We've walked the Yorkshire moors together tonight, through storm and starlight. We've witnessed love at its most consuming, revenge at its most complete, and healing at its most tender. We've seen Catherine torn between worlds she couldn't reconcile. The wild moors calling her soul, while the Grange offered comfort her heart couldn't quite accept. We've watched Heathcliff transform from abandoned child to terrible avenger to exhausted pilgrim finally reaching home. His darkness was vast, but so was his devotion. His revenge consumed 2 generations before it burned itself out. But even Heathcliff couldn't sustain hatred forever. In the end, only love remained, only Catherine. And from all that destruction, something beautiful grew. Young Cathy and Hareton chose differently than the generation before. They chose kindness, they chose patience, they chose each other. Perhaps Catherine and Heathcliff walk the moors together now, finally united. Perhaps they found the heaven neither church nor society could offer them. Perhaps love won after all. What stays with you from this story? Perhaps Catherine's fierce cry that she and Heathcliff share the same soul. Perhaps his impossible, terrible, beautiful faithfulness across decades. Perhaps it's simply the moors themselves, that wild landscape where emotions grow as vast as the sky, where love and hate have room to become something elemental. The moors don't judge what happened there. They simply witnessed. Wind and heather and stone. They receive all stories equally and keep them forever in their silence. If you listen carefully tonight, perhaps you can hear that wind, distant and soft now, carrying old voices from Yorkshire hills across the miles to wherever you rest. The heather is sleeping now in the winter months, brown stalks beneath snow. But the roots hold life underground, waiting for August's purple resurrection. Houses crumble eventually. Wuthering Heights may fall to ruin one day. Thrushcross Grange may become someone else's memory. But the story goes on forever. Emily wrote her truth in that cold parsonage, with her dog at her feet and her sisters nearby. She gave it to the world. Now it belongs to dreamers like you. You've carried Catherine and Heathcliff with you now. They've taken up residence in your imagination. They'll be there whenever you want to visit them again. Let the story settle now. Like snow on the moors, soft, gradual, covering everything in quiet white. The drama is over. Only peace remains. The Yorkshire hills grow distant now in your mind's eye. Soft outlines against gray sky. The details blur gently. Only the feeling remains. Stone walls fade to gray ribbons across the land. Paths become soft lines leading nowhere urgent. The map of the story dissolves into comfortable memory. The wind quiets to a whisper now. No longer howling around the heights. Just a gentle breath across the hither. Just a soft sigh at the window. The great hearth fires have burned down to embers. Orange glow fading slowly. Warmth lingering even as light dims. Comfort without brightness. Candles gutter and dim throughout the houses. One by one, flames bow and vanish. Darkness comes as friend tonight, not fearsome thing. The moors spread out under starlight now. Vast and still. No ghosts walking tonight, only peace. Only the ancient land breathing slowly, slowly. Stars appear one by one over Yorkshire. The same stars that shone when Catherine was a child. The same stars that will shine long after all stories end. Moonlight silvers the old stones of the heights. The house stands quiet now. No one walks its corridors tonight. No voices, no footsteps, only moonbeams and memory. In the kirkyard, 3 graves lie undisturbed. Moonlight falls equally on each stone. Whatever passed between those buried there. The earth holds them peacefully together now. No ghosts walk the moors tonight. If they ever walked, they've found their peace at last. The shepherd sees nothing on his midnight rounds but sheep and starlight. Sheep settle on the hillsides, soft wool bright in darkness. Their breathing slow and easy, the rhythm of sleep spreading across the land like gentle tide. Curlews have fallen silent until morning. The night birds rest. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. Yorkshire sleeps, and we can sleep with it. The parsonage windows are dark. The Brontes sleep their long sleep, their work complete. Emily dreams whatever the dead dream, perhaps of purple heather stretching forever. But their words still glow, in libraries around the world, in the minds of readers drifting toward dreams. Emily's voice carries through time, soft and certain. For now, though, silence. Comfortable, embracing silence. The kind that comes after a long story well told. The kind that invites sleep without forcing it. Your eyes may be growing heavy now. That's exactly as it should be. This is what the story was for, to carry you gently toward rest. You don't need to hold on to the story now. It's safe within you. Catherine and Heathcliff will wait. The Moors will wait. They have all the time in the world. Catherine and Heathcliff are together now, wherever together is for them. No more searching. No more waiting at windows. No more crying in the snow. They found each other. And young Cathy and Hareton are happy at Thrushcross Grange, planning their future, planting their gardens, letting old wounds heal in the warm light of their love. All is as it should be. Endings have been found. Circles have closed. The story rests complete. You can rest too. Everything is finished that needed finishing. Thank you for walking with me tonight through Wuthering Heights. Thank you for trusting me with this story. Thank you for listening until the moors grew quiet. Sleep now if sleep is coming. Let the moors fade gently from your mind. Let the wind become the sound of your own breathing, slow and deep. Perhaps you'll dream of purple hither tonight, of wide skies and wild hills, of love that lasts beyond all reason, perhaps, or perhaps just peaceful darkness. Perhaps you'll hear the wind singing old songs through your sleep, songs of Catherine and Heathcliff, songs of the moors, or perhaps only quiet. Quiet is good too. Good night now. Rest well. The story is complete and you are safe. The moors will be there tomorrow if you want them. Sleep now. Good night.